Hey everyone and welcome to the channel. So if you are new to C++ and wondering how to write your very first C++ program, then this video is exactly what you need. Today we are going to break down the famous Hello World program of C++, and in the process we will explore the fundamental syntax of the program that you will use every day as a programmer. We'll start by looking at the essential components that make up this simple program, including the directives, the main function, and how to use statements and the importance of syntax like semicolons and curly braces, so that in the end of the video you will not only understand how to write your first program, but also how each part fits together to create a fully functioning C++ application. We'll also be going through the two versions of the basic program that you may encounter and tell you similarities and differences between them. So I'll be using my writing pad to make the explanation, as I believe that will help make you better understand the concept with illustrations. Then you can actually transfer the code that we will build together into a code editor where you execute it and see the output. So grab your code editor and writing material, and let's jump right into the world of C++. Are you ready? Then let's go. Alright, let's first talk about the most important part of every C++ program, the main function. This is the entry point of every C++ program. When you run your program, execution always begins here, and it is required in every C++ program, so you can see it on the screen. That is, for every code that you write, this function must always be present, no matter how complex your program gets. You will always have the main function present in it. Think of the main function as the starting point of your program. When you execute a program, the operating system looks for this main function and begins executing the code from inside of it. Without the main function, your program wouldn't have a defined starting point, and that will make it impossible for the program to run. So now let's look at the full syntax of the main function in more detail. First is the int keyword, so you can see the int here. This is the return type of the main function. It tells the program that the main function will return an integer value. In C++, the main function always returns an integer, which indicates that the status of the program when it finishes running will become an integer. That's why you see a return 0 at the end of it here. So you can see 0 is an integer. A return value of 0 signifies that the program runs successfully without any error. So when you see int main, it tells us that when main finishes, or when the main program finishes, it will send back an integer value to the operating system to indicate how things went. The next is the word main. So in this case you can see this word main. This is the name of the function. It must always be main, all in lowercase, and it can't be anything else. The name is fixed because the operating system will look for the function called main to start the program. The next is the parenthesis just after the main, so you can see the parenthesis here. In the case of the main function, the parenthesis may be empty, meaning that it doesn't take any arguments. However, they are still required to define that the main is a function. The curly braces right after it, so you can see here now, this is the opening curly braces and this is the closing curly braces. This defines the body of the main function. Everything you want your program to execute goes right inside these braces. Any code written inside the curly braces is considered part of the main function and will be executed when the program runs. Now, if you compile and run this code as it is, it will definitely execute without any errors, but nothing will be printed on the screen. That is because while the program successfully starts and finishes, it doesn't contain any instructions to display output to the user. To actually display something on the screen, which is something we often need to do to test our programs, we need to add a few simple yet powerful commands to our code. So let's do that right now and print something like hello world to the console. So now I have updated the code to print a sentence like hello world on the screen. If you run this code on your computer, you will see hello world displayed on the output. But before we run this script, let me walk you through what is really happening actually here. At the very top of the code right here, like this particular part you can see here now, you have seen what we say include IO stream. This is called a preprocessor directive. Every preprocessor directive must begin with a pound sign and must be the only statement on that line of code and nothing else. In this case, it is used to direct the compiler to include the IOStream library. So this is the library, the IOStream library in our program. The IOStream library or file provides input and output functionality in C++, which is essential for printing data to the screen. In other words, if we do not include this IOStream file in our code, we will not be able to perform any data input or output operations in our program. The IOStream file is enclosed in angular brackets, so you can see the opening angular bracket and this is the closing angular bracket, which tells the compiler that the IOStream file is a standard system library or file that comes bundled with the C++ compiler, rather than a custom file that you might create in your own project. The function inside of the IOStream that helps us to print data to the console is the cout, which is what we see here. That's the cout function, which is just like a short word for output console. So cout, output console. So now we've discovered that cout is a function that resides inside the standard IOStream library. But why do we have something like punctuations of like 2 less than sign and 2 colons and std just wrapped around it? Now let me explain why. The reason that is because, for example, or suppose you want to write an external file in your script, and this external file also contains a function named cout that does something entirely different. This will create a conflict for the compiler as to which cout functions should it use to process your output data or some other manipulations. To avoid this name conflict, C++ uses a concept called namespaces. Think of a namespace like a surname for functions or variables. It helps identify where a particular function is coming from. So for example, the cout function we've been using is coming from the IOStream file, which I have explained to be a standard file. So we use the std namespace. Std meaning standard, right? For any function that is inside of any standard file. When you append the std with cout, it means that the cout function is a function that is inside of a standard file. The 2 colons between them are called resolution operator, which helps to resolve that a function is from a particular namespace. So this colon operator has resolved that this cout is from the standard namespace. To the right of the cout function are 2 less than signs. So you can see these signs here. It always goes with the cout function, and it is called the insertion operator. This operator is what is used to insert or send data into the output function, which is cout. In this case, it is sending the text hello world to cout, which then displays it to the screen. Alright, so far we've noticed that we've been using cout in our program with the std : just before it. So it means that if we want to use cout in our program, once we do that, we have to do the std : and everything. And so that becomes a bit repetitive. So you might ask, do I really have to type std : every time I use cout or something from the standard namespace? Well, there is a way to make it easier, which is the version 2 we are going to see here right now. That's why we use the line using namespace std. So you can see here now, I have said using namespace std. By adding this line of code right after the include directive, we are telling the compiler, hey, I'm going to use a lot of stuff from the standard namespace. Instead of me to manually type it, please help me append it wherever you see any function that is from the standard namespace. So once I see any function like that, the C++ compiler will say, okay, I can help you do this. So just say using namespace std. Do not put the std : right after it. So you can see in this first version, I said std : and then cout. But I didn't say using namespace std. But in this case, what I said, using namespace std, I didn't have to put std colon colon. So when this particular script compiles, the std colon colon will be appended just before the cout by the compiler. As you can see, this makes it easier and shorter and cleaner. No more need to write std colon colon before each standard library function. That's pretty convenient, right? So if you notice in your code also, both the line where we said hello world and the return 0, like here and here, we terminated it with a semicolon. That's because in C++, lines of code are terminated by semicolon. These are called statements. So every statement in C++ will be terminated by a semicolon. It tells the compiler that the current instruction or command is complete and the next line can actually begin. So there you have it. We have explored two versions of the basic C++ program, both of which accomplishes the same goal, printing hello world on the screen. The difference just lies in how we handle the standard library functions. In the first version, we explicitly used std colon colon and then cout every time we want to print to the console. In the second version, we said using namespace std at the top of the program. This allowed us to omit the std prefix, making the code shorter and easier to read. Alright, this wraps up our basic C++ syntax breakdown. We've covered everything from the main function, the directives, printing output, and namespaces to understand the role of semicolons and statements in C++. I hope this video gives you a solid foundation on how to build your first C++ program. If you enjoyed this video and find it helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on future programming tutorials. Also feel free to leave any questions or comments below. I'll be ready to help. Thanks for watching and happy coding.